Thank you for being an incredible supporter of the 10X podcast group, the home of the skillful art of manipulation. We're thrilled to have you as part of our growing community. If you haven't already, we'd love for you to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Your likes and comments mean the world to us and help us reach a wider audience with our stories. Plus, with new episodes released every day, your feedback plays a vital role in shaping what we create. It truly makes a difference. Your loyalty and enthusiasm fuel our passion for crafting gripping tales, and we're so grateful for your support. Today, we're excited to present Tears on the Tip, a story that promises to keep you on the edge of your seat. Let's dive into this thrilling narrative together. Chapter 1: Velvet Secrets. They say every stripper's got a story. Some are chasing a dream. Some are running from one. Others are just trying to survive long enough to see tomorrow. Me, I dance for different reasons. Revenge, mostly. Control. Power. And maybe, just maybe, to make peace with the fucked up little girl I used to be. My name's Raye. No last name. No frills. Just Raye. But around Eclipse, I go by Velvet. That name was branded on me the first night I worked the pole, and it stuck like glitter to skin. Velvet rolls off the tongue easy. Seductive. Smooth. Dangerous, too, if you know how to wield it. And baby, I've turned it into a fucking weapon. Eclipse isn't your average strip club. It's not the kind of place you stumble into after a night of shitty beers and broken promises. Eclipse is for the rich, the corrupt, the desperate men with money in their wallets and skeletons in their closets. Located in the heart of downtown, but tucked away in a building with no sign and no windows, it's one of those places that only exists if you know it exists. That's where I thrive. In the shadows. Under the strobe lights. Between champagne kisses and whispered confessions. The bouncers know not to ask questions. The bartenders serve without looking you in the eye. And the dancers? We smile like we're made of satin, but most of us are stitched together with secrets and scars. We're not your fantasy. We're your punishment for believing in one. It was a Thursday night when I met him. Thursdays are quiet enough to notice who doesn't belong. I had just finished a set on stage, the kind that makes you forget your name. Body drenched in sweat and oil, heart racing from the music thumping in my chest like a war drum. My heels clicked down the steps as I wrapped myself in a robe the color of spilled wine, my body still pulsing with adrenaline. That's when I saw him. Corner booth. Eyes too sharp for a place like this. He didn't ogle. He studied. Like he was dissecting the room, piece by piece. Like he was looking for something. Or someone. His suit screamed money, but the tension in his shoulders? That whispered regret. His watch flashed a brief glint of light, Rolex. Black face. Diamond bezel. Customized. I clocked it in one glance. Men like him don't come to Eclipse for pleasure. They come to confess. I approached him slow, graceful, deliberate. Every move calculated. I knew the way the light would hit the side of my thigh. I knew what the scent of vanilla and bourbon in my hair would do when I leaned in close. I knew the tremble in his hand wasn't from nerves. It was from guilt. Watching or buying? I asked, letting my voice drawl just enough to tease. He looked up at me like he'd forgotten he was in a strip club. Like he wasn't sure if I was real. His lips parted, words catching in his throat. You always this blunt. Only with men who look like they've got a secret bleeding out of em, I replied, cocking my head. And baby, you look like you're drowning in it. He smirked, trying to play it cool. But I saw it. That flicker of something. Fear. Curiosity. Lust. All tangled together behind those tailored eyes. He nodded toward the private suites upstairs. Hook. Line. Sinner. We walked through the velvet curtain into the back, past the smell of cologne and shame. The hallway was lined with red lighting, dim and warm, like a womb. Soundproof doors to each room. Surveillance cameras hidden in the corners, but that's just standard practice. What no one knows, what no one can know, is that I've got a tiny mic tucked in the lining of my thong and a discreet voice recorder strapped to the inside of my thigh. Not for safety. For leverage. While the other girls hustle for $100 tips, I collect sins. I harvest dirty little secrets and sell them to the highest bidder. Politicians, tech bros, trust fund degenerates, they come here thinking they're gods. They leave as articles. Anonymous sources. Tabloid chaos. And I watched the world burn from a velvet throne. Inside the room, I started the routine. Soft music played through the built-in speakers. Slow jazz, sultry and sad. The kind of shit that makes men think they're deep. I straddled his lap without touching him, just close enough to feel his breath hitch when I leaned in. My lips brushed his ear. You here for pleasure, Or confession? He chuckled, but it wasn't genuine. His fingers flexed on the leather seat beneath him. What makes you think I've got anything to confess? I smiled, slow and wicked. Because you haven't blinked since I sat down. Because your knees bouncing like a guilty heartbeat. And because I can smell regret stronger than cologne. He stared at me. Then he said, "You ever hear of Northgate Tech?" The name hit like a gut punch. Northgate Tech was in the news last year. A massive data privacy scandal. Whispers of blackmail. Disappearing employees. But it was buried fast, too fast. Nobody ever took the fall. Until now. He leaned in, voice low. I'm about to leak something that'll fuck everything up. I mean everything. But I need it to look like an accident. Like it just slipped. My hips moved in rhythm with the music. I traced his jawline with the tip of my nail. Then let me be your accident, baby. He told me everything. About the offshore accounts. The money laundering. The executives stealing from their own clients. About how he tried to back out, and they sent a message. A real message. A woman in his department fell from her balcony last week. He said it with a hollow look in his eyes. By the time he was finished talking, I knew the names, dates, transactions, and passwords. I had it all burned into my brain like scripture. He exhaled, and for a second I saw him soften. Vulnerability leaking through the cracks. Do you think I'm a bad person? He asked. I paused, lips inches from his. No, I whispered. I think you're just not good at being one. I kissed him then. Not out of attraction. Not out of sympathy. But because I needed him to think this was a moment. That what happened in this room stayed in this room. It didn't. Later that night, when the club emptied and the floor stank of sweat and spilled drinks, I walked to my locker. I pulled out my burner phone, opened a secure folder, and uploaded the voice recording to an encrypted server. Subject, the canary sings. Recipient, midnight buzz anonymous tip line. I watched the progress bar crawl across the screen as the city outside slept soundly in ignorance. Then I lit a cigarette, even though I quit months ago. Some nights just taste better with ash on your tongue. I walked home in silence, past alleys that smelled like regret, past storefronts that would never know what I'd done. In my apartment, bare walls, stained carpet, broken blinds. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat on the edge of my bed. There was a photograph under the mattress. I pulled it out with trembling fingers. Me, age 15. Hair in braids. Smiling wide, even though I had bruises on my ribs you couldn't see in the frame. My mother took that picture the day before she vanished. No note. No warning. Just gone. I burned it. Held the flame to the corner until it curled in on itself, like the lie it captured. Watched it smolder in the ashtray like a funeral pyre. We're not victims anymore, I whispered to the ashes. We're the fucking storm now. Chapter 2. Champagne and chloroform. I woke up the next morning to chaos. Northgate Tech was trending. Everywhere. Hashtag Gate Gone Wrong, hashtag Leak the Truth, and my personal favorite, hashtag Tech Trash Tuesday. Headlines screamed from every screen. Whistleblower exposes billion-dollar conspiracy. Private data breach tied to political corruption. Northgate execs under investigation. And me. I was sipping coffee on my fire escape, legs crossed, wrapped in an old silk robe that still smelled like perfume and sex. I watched the sunrise cut through the skyline like a blade, and wondered how many corporate offices were going up in flames while their lawyers scrambled to clean up the blood. I should have felt powerful. Victorious. I should have let the satisfaction sink into my bones. But instead, I felt watched. Not paranoid. Not nervous. Watched. There's a difference. My building is old. Brick and iron. The kind of place that creaks when it's cold and moans when it's not. And yet, that morning it was silent. Still, like the whole world was holding its breath. That silence wrapped around me like a vice, and deep in my gut, something twisted. I lit a cigarette I didn't want and tried to shake it. By noon, I was at Eclipse. I needed the noise. The distraction. The dull roar of bass, the clinking of glasses, the whisper of stilettos against lacquered floors. I needed it all to drown out the feeling that maybe, just maybe, I'd poked a beast that doesn't just snarl. It devours. Candy was already at her station, doing her makeup in the cracked mirror behind the bar. She looked up at me through lashes so thick they could fly. "Girl, you see that shit in the news," she said. "Some tech firm just got their whole ass aired out like dirty laundry. You think it was one of our clients?" I smirked. "Maybe. Rich men talk too much when their dicks are hard." Candy laughed, tossing her lipstick into her bag. "Ain't that the truth?" But her voice faltered. Just slightly. The sound caught on something unspoken. Something cold. She leaned in, whispering, "Velvet, 2 men came in here this morning asking about you." My body went rigid. "What kind of men?" "Corporate looking. Suits. Too clean. Said they were old friends. Asked if you still danced here." I blinked once. Slowly. "Did they leave a name?" "No. Just a card." She handed it to me. Black. Unmarked. Just a number on the back in silver ink. No company. No name. No logo. That's not a business card. That's a fucking warning. I shoved it in my purse, told Candy I'd be back later, and slipped into the dressing room. My heart was thudding like a bass drum in my throat. Not from fear. From certainty. I'd drawn blood, and now someone wanted to return the favor. I needed to disappear, just long enough to figure out who the hell was circling. But first I had to work. That night, the club pulsed with the kind of desperate energy I'd learned to smell. The VIP section was booked solid. The bartenders couldn't keep up with the Dom Perignon orders, and girls were making rent in a single lap dance. The scent of money clung to the air like perfume. And in that haze I saw him. Booth 6. The same place the tech guy sat the week before. But this man? He didn't fidget. He didn't drink. He didn't even fucking blink. He wore a charcoal suit that fit like a threat. His jaw was sharp enough to cut glass. His hair slicked back with surgical precision. No tie. No emotion. Just cold, clinical stillness. The kind that screamed trained. He didn't look like a client. He looked like a cleaner. And he was watching me. Not my body. Not my performance. Me. Like he already knew my real name. Like he knew the exact amount in my offshore account. Like he'd been in my apartment while I was asleep, counting the steps from the front door to my bed. I gave him the show he came for. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to know who he was and what he wanted. So I danced. I danced like my body wasn't wired with fear. Like I didn't taste metal in my throat. I moved like every curve was a secret, every turn of my hips a threat. And when the set ended, I made my way to his booth. "You gonna stare all night, or are you gonna pay for something handsome?" He looked up. Slow. Controlled. "You're not what I expected." I smiled, baring teeth. "Good. I'd hate to be predictable." He slid a folded envelope across the table. "Consider this a test." I didn't touch it. I don't do favors for ghosts. He leaned forward, and for the first time I smelled him, clean, sterile, expensive. Like danger bottled and sold in high-end department stores. "You're good at what you do, Velvet. Very good. But you've made enemies." "Yeah," I said, finally taking the envelope. "It's part of the job." As I turned to walk away, he said one last thing. "They're not coming to scare you. They're coming to erase you." Backstage, I ripped open the envelope. Inside, a photo. Grainy. Black and white. Of me, leaving the club last week. Same night I leaked the Northgate confession. Attached was a single sentence, typed on plain paper. "There is no such thing as an anonymous whistleblower." My breath caught. My vision narrowed. I had a choice. Run or retaliate. And I've never been the running type. I spent the next 3 hours pretending everything was fine. Smiling. Grinding. Letting sweaty hands slide over my thighs while my mind raced. After my shift, I went to the Raven's Nest, a grimy little bar owned by an ex-con who owed me more favors than he could count. The place smelled like sweat and old secrets. Perfect. Jax was behind the counter, polishing a glass with a rag dirtier than the floor. "You look like shit," he said. "Thanks, asshole," I replied, dropping the envelope on the bar. He scanned it. Whistled low. "You in deep." "Not yet," I said. "But I will be." He handed me a phone. A burner. Preloaded with encryption apps and ghost mode SIM cards. "You didn't get this from me." "I never get anything from you," I said with a grin. "You're just my fairy godcon." Jax rolled his eyes. "If your dumbass gets killed, I'm not going to your funeral. I'm just gonna rob your place." I leaned in, my voice dropping. "You ever heard of a fixer named Maddox?" He froze. Just for a second. "That name's cursed, Raye." "Good," I said. "I'm in the mood to dance with the devil." I got home just before dawn. I checked my locks 3 times. Sat in the silence of my apartment, waiting for the shadows to move. And then a knock. One. Soft. Almost polite. I crept to the door, blade in hand. Slid the peephole open. No one. But something sat on the floor. A bottle of champagne. And next to it, a white rag. Soaked. Chapter 3. Dirty Deals and Dead Eyes. First-person narration. The rag was soaked in chloroform. I didn't even have to smell it. I just knew. I could feel it in the cold curl of dread that slid down my spine like sweat on a stripper pole. That shit wasn't a gift. It was a message. And the champagne? That was the joke. A twisted, silent cheers from someone letting me know I was now living on borrowed time. They didn't want to scare me. They wanted to warn me. The kind of warning that came right before the vanishing act. The kind that left no fingerprints. No trace. Just an empty apartment and questions that never get answers. I didn't sleep that night. I sat cross-legged in the center of my living room floor, surrounded by everything I owned. 2 suitcases, a pile of burner phones, 3 fake passports, a pistol with the serial number filed off, and a flash drive hidden inside a tube of lipstick. My emergency bag had been packed for years. But this was the first time I actually felt like I might need it. The sun crept through the cracks in my blinds like guilt. Quiet. Relentless. By 7 a.m., my coffee tasted like copper, and my eyes felt like they'd been scraped with sandpaper. I kept hearing that man's voice. They're not coming to scare you. They're coming to erase you. And I couldn't stop thinking about that name. Maddox. Maddox wasn't a man. Not anymore. He was a myth. A whispered name in the backrooms of criminal poker games and dirty strip joints. A fixer so ruthless and elusive, he made your sins disappear, along with anyone who asked the wrong questions about them. Nobody had a photo. Nobody had a confirmed sighting. He was a ghost, until you owed him something. Then, suddenly, he was real. Too fucking real. I needed to find him. Not to beg. To buy him. Because if I was being hunted, I needed someone more dangerous than my hunters. Someone who didn't blink at murder, blackmail, or disappearing bodies in oil drums. And if the whispers were true, Maddox didn't work for favors. He worked for leverage. Lucky for me. I traded in it. I started where all things rotten begin. The underbelly of the city. That meant heading downtown to Level 0. A grimy, windowless after-hours club built in the basement of an abandoned train station. You didn't get into Level 0 unless you had something to offer, or something to run from. I walked in just after 10 p.m., wrapped in black leather and bad intentions. The bouncer, a 6'5" wall of muscle named Ox, eyed me like a suspicious package. I didn't flinch, just pulled a folded photo from my bra, slapped it against his chest, and said, "I'm looking for the man who knows this man." He didn't ask questions. Just nodded once and stepped aside. That's the kind of place this was. Inside, Level 0 was a fever dream of red lighting, stale smoke, and music that throbbed through your bones like a panic attack. The air was thick with sweat and danger, and everyone inside looked like they'd either killed someone, fucked someone over, or both. I found her in the back. Trixie. She used to dance at Eclipse years ago. Real name, Sierra Jennings. But that girl was dead now. What sat before me was a weapon in platform heels. Trixie was the kind of woman who could make a cartel boss piss himself with a glance. And she owed me. Big. She was perched on a velvet couch, legs crossed, nails blood-red, sipping something that looked expensive and tasted like vengeance. Her eyes lit up when she saw me, but not with joy. With wariness. Well, she said. If it isn't velvet. Heard you stirred up a shitstorm. That true? I slid into the seat beside her. Close enough to whisper. I need to find Maddox. Her face didn't change. Not even a blink. You got a death wish? No. Just a list. She chuckled. You think you can hire him? Like he's a fucking hitman on Craigslist. I don't want to hire him. I want to make a deal. Her eyes narrowed. Deals with Maddox don't end well. I leaned in, slow and steady. Neither do threats from Northgate. She froze. I saw the recognition spark behind her eyes. The headlines. The leaked files. The whispers that someone inside had flipped. I saw the dots connecting in real time. Jesus, she muttered. You're the whistleblower. I didn't confirm it. Didn't need to. I have information, I said. And I need protection. The kind only he can provide. Trixie sat back, swirling her drink. There's a door. On the East River docks. Building looks abandoned. No windows. No signage. You knock 4 times. Wait 3 seconds. Then 2 more knocks. If he wants to see you, someone let you in. And if he doesn't, she shrugged. Then you vanish. The docks were colder than I remembered. The wind off the water bit into my skin like tiny knives, and the buildings looked like tombstones under the moonlight. I found the one she described, gray, industrial, silent. No sound but the slap of waves and the creak of rusted metal. I knocked. 4 times. Waited. 3 seconds. 2 more knocks. Nothing. Then, a metallic click. The door opened 2 inches. A face appeared. Masked. You Velvet? Yes. The door opened wider. Don't speak unless asked. Don't lie unless you're ready to die. I stepped in. The hallway was narrow, lit only by a single red bulb hanging from the ceiling. It smelled like metal and secrets. I followed the masked man through a maze of steel corridors until we reached a door marked with nothing but a jagged X burned into the surface. He opened it. Inside was Maddox. Or at least, I think it was. He sat behind a desk carved from black stone, wearing a suit that looked like it cost more than my apartment. His face was partially shadowed, eyes unreadable, hands folded in front of him like he was expecting a confession. He didn't speak for a long time, just watched me. And I let him. Finally, he said, "You're brave. Or stupid. Or both." I stepped forward. "I have information. Exclusive. Untouched. About Northgate, the payout chain, the international laundering streams, everything." He didn't blink. And I want protection. Digital. Physical. Relocation package. I want to disappear before they make me disappear. He smiled. "Barely. You're good at gathering secrets, Velvet. But you're better at weaponizing them." "You're damn right I am." He leaned back, studying me like I was a puzzle with a missing piece. "Fine. You'll get your protection. But in return..." I felt the weight of his next words before he spoke them. "You'll work for me." Chapter 4. Baptized in Blood. There's no such thing as clean power. That's the first thing I learned after shaking Maddox's hand. You don't make a deal with the devil and walk away pure. You don't step into a world built on secrets and blood and expect to leave with your soul intact. No, you earn your place in hell. Step by step. Lie by lie. Death by fucking death. And I had just bought myself a front row seat. He didn't say anything else that night. Just nodded toward the man in the mask and said, "Take her." And like that, I was no longer a guest. I was property. The masked man led me down another corridor. Longer. Darker. The walls felt tighter, like they were closing in. I could hear the sound of distant metal, clanking, echoing like a warning. Every step I took echoed like a heartbeat in my ears. I didn't ask where we were going. I didn't need to. Wherever it was, I knew it wasn't good. He opened a door at the end of the hall. Inside was a room with no windows. Just a table, a chair, and a steel briefcase. Harsh fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, washing everything in an ugly yellow glow. "Sit," he said. I did. He placed the briefcase in front of me, snapped the latches, and opened it. Inside, a burner phone, a Glock 19, and a single manila envelope. "Your initiation," he said. "Do it and you're under Maddox's protection. Fail and well, you'll wish you had." I picked up the envelope. My hands didn't shake. They never do when it counts. Inside was a photo. A man. Mid-40s. Expensive suit. Scar on his chin. Arrogant eyes. There was a dossier attached. Name, address, schedule, car. He was a lobbyist for a private prison company. Tied to bribery. Kidnappings. Quiet disappearances of undocumented teens who ended up in state-run black sites for profit. My stomach turned. The man had blood on his hands. But I was being asked to put more on mine. "What do you want me to do?" I asked, voice low. The masked man tilted his head. "Make it look like a suicide. No noise. No body for the press." And just like that, I was no longer a manipulator. I was a hitwoman in training. I spent the next 48 hours in a motel that smelled like mildew and cheap detergent. Planning. Studying. Rehearsing. I watched the target's patterns. Tracked him to his office. His condo. His mistress's penthouse. He was sloppy. Predictable. Thought he was untouchable. Men like him always do. I didn't feel guilty. Not yet. Maybe that makes me a monster. Or maybe I was just tired of watching evil win. The plan was simple. Get inside the penthouse. Catch him off guard. Slip a benzodiazepine cocktail into his whiskey. Make it look like he jumped from his own balcony. A tragic fall. A silent scandal. No loose ends. The hard part wasn't the killing. The hard part was smiling while I did it. He answered the door with his shirt half-buttoned and a smirk on his face. "Ah, the new girl," he said, dragging his eyes down my body like he was reading a menu. I was expecting blonde. "I get that a lot," I said, stepping inside. His penthouse was all glass and grede. Marble floors. Chrome furniture. Giant windows overlooking the city like he owned it. I slipped off my coat and let the cold air kiss my bare shoulders. He poured 2 glasses of scotch. I watched him drop ice cubes into mine. Amateur move. I slipped the drug into his drink when he turned to check his phone. 30 minutes later, he was swaying. 40 minutes, he was on the floor. I didn't panic. I didn't hesitate. I dragged him to the balcony, positioned him against the railing like he was contemplating something deep. I made sure the security cams caught him pacing, nervous, erratic. I planted his phone on the ledge with a half-written note on screen. Then I pushed him. He didn't scream. Just disappeared into the night like a dropped cigarette. By dawn, I was back at Maddox's. The masked man opened the door. He jumped, I said flatly. He stepped aside. Maddox was seated at the same stone desk. This time, a glass of something amber sat before him. He didn't look up. You followed the instructions, he said. Efficient. Quiet. No press interference. I waited. Then he looked at me. But it wasn't admiration in his eyes. It wasn't even approval. It was ownership. You belong to me now, he said. You understand that? I nodded. Because that's what the game was now. No more secrets for sale. No more playing the middle. I was inside the web. And Maddox was the spider. The next few days blurred into chaos. I was given a new identity. New address. New phone. I was briefed by a woman named Dahlia, ex-NSA, zero facial expressions, carried herself like she could kill a man with her earring. She trained me on data encryption, ghost tracking, burner laundering, and disposal protocol. We ran drills. Practiced trades. She taught me how to vanish in plain sight, and how to make someone else disappear even easier. And all the while I kept asking myself, what the fuck have I become? I used to cry after a lap dance. Now I was being trained to erase lives. But there was something else happening too. I was starting to like the power. I didn't feel weak anymore. Didn't feel like the girl whose mother abandoned her. Didn't feel like the teenager who was molested by her stepfather while her aunt turned a blind eye. Didn't feel like the stripper pretending to seduce men just to survive. I felt dangerous. And that terrified me. On the 7th day, Maddox summoned me again. This time he wasn't alone. Across the table sat a woman in a silver suit, legs crossed, red lips tight. She turned to me. You're the asset? I bristled. Name's Raye. She's got a spine, the woman said, almost amused. Maddox slid a folder across the table. Inside were photos. Of me. Taken over the last 2 weeks. At the motel. At the penthouse. Even one of me talking to Trixie in level 0. How did these get out? I asked. Maddox stared me down. Someone close to you is leaking. And now they know you're working for me. My stomach dropped. Candy. It had to be. Find the leak, Maddox said. End it. And don't come back until you do. Chapter 5, Pretty Little Corpses. The closer you get to power, the louder betrayal breathes on your neck. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It smiles in your face, pours you a drink, compliments your lipstick, and tells you everything's fine, while it slips a knife between your ribs. I'd lived through men stealing my body, women stealing my tips, cops stealing my freedom, and family stealing my peace. But this was different. Someone knew I was working for Maddox. Someone I trusted had slit my name open and served it to the wolves. And I was going to bury them for it. Eclipse looked different now. Or maybe I did. The lights weren't seductive, they were sinister. The mirrors weren't seductive, they were surveillance. Every laugh sounded hollow. Every compliment sounded rehearsed. The air tasted like perfume and poison, and every dancer I'd ever called sister suddenly looked like a suspect. I walked through the club like I owned it, even though my spine was stiff with tension and my hand never drifted far from the knife in my bag. Candy was behind the bar. She didn't flinch when she saw me. That almost made me sure it was her. Almost. Velvet, she called, smiling wide like I hadn't vanished for a week. Where the hell you been? You missed hella tips, girl. I slid onto the stool in front of her, letting my stare speak first. Got caught up in some private gigs, I said, voice calm. Big money. She leaned forward, low-cut top showing just enough to keep the drunks focused. You always had a way of landing whales. What's your secret? I let the silence stretch before answering. I listen when they talk. Her smile faltered just a millimeter. Then she covered it. Laughed. Girl, you always been a mind reader. Something like that. I sipped the drink she slid to me. Didn't swallow. Let it touch my lips just long enough to sell the lie, then set it back down. In this game, trust wasn't just dead. It had been cremated and scattered across 6 counties. I watched the room. Lola, rubbing her ass on a client's lap while whispering in his ear. Could be her. Maya, giving that fake giggle she always gave when she was eavesdropping. Could be her too. Trixie had warned me that someone close was the leak, but I hadn't realized how fucking close she meant. I had to be surgical. I had to be precise. I had to play dumb. Backstage, the dressing room smelled like heat, hairspray, and anxiety. My reflection stared back at me in the mirror. Eyes sharper, colder, lips lined with venom. I wasn't Velvet anymore. I was Raye and wore paint. Candy walked in behind me. "Got a sec?" she asked. I nodded. She sat on the bench beside me, close enough to kill. "I missed you," she said. I turned slowly. "You ever miss someone so much it starts to look like guilt?" I asked, soft. She blinked. "What?" "Nothing," I said, standing. "Just thinking out loud." I walked away before she could answer. Let her sit with that. I needed evidence. And Maddox had drilled this into me: never confront until you're sure. So I bugged her locker. Slipped a mic into her bag. Left a tracker in her heels. Watched. Waited. 3 nights passed. Nothing. And then on the 4th, bingo. The mic picked up a conversation in the bathroom. Candy on the phone. Whispering fast. Panicked. "I don't know what she knows, okay? She's back. She's asking questions. I told you I only passed on the client names. That was it. I didn't know she was working with him." The phone buzzed louder. "I know what he's capable of. Don't say his name. Don't. Hello? Hello." I played it back twice. She was the leak. Not malicious. Not greedy. Scared. Scared people make the worst traders because they'll sell anything to feel safe. Even you. I found her that night in the storage room, counting bottles for the bartender. Alone. Vulnerable. Still wearing that same shade of lipstick I used to borrow. I closed the door behind me. She turned, startled. "Hey, I was just..." "You gave them my name." Her face froze. I stepped closer. "You sold me out." "Don't lie, Candy." I heard the call. Her hands trembled. I didn't mean to, okay? I didn't know who you were working with. They said it was just for info. Just for background. I didn't know they'd come for you. You didn't ask." She opened her mouth to cry. And that pissed me off more than anything. Because when you betray someone like me, you don't get to cry. "You put a fucking chloroform rag on my doorstep," I whispered. "You almost put a bullet in my head." "I'm sorry," she said, tears falling. "I didn't know it would go that far. Please, Velvet. Please, I didn't mean to hurt you." "You didn't hurt me," I said. "You hurt yourself." Then I pulled the syringe out of my pocket. Dahlia had given it to me before I left Maddox's compound. Clear liquid. Fast. Quiet. Untraceable. "You only get one," she said. "Use it wisely." I injected it into Candy's neck before she could scream. Her eyes went wide. Her knees buckled. She crumpled to the floor like a marionette with its strings cut. No blood. No mess. Just betrayal silenced. I stared at her body. Then I knelt beside her and whispered. "You were the closest thing I had to a friend. That's why it hurts like this." Then I walked away. I texted Maddox one word: done. He responded in under a minute. "You're clean. Report in 24 hours. New assignment waiting." Back at home, I stripped off my clothes and stood in the mirror naked. I looked at my body, curves that once danced for cash, skin that had absorbed so many lies, hands that had pulled secrets out of men with nothing but a smile and a grind. Now those same hands had killed. And the worst part? I didn't feel broken. I felt clear. Like I'd finally become the thing the world always treated me as. Dangerous. Unapologetic. Untouchable. I turned the faucet, let the water burn hot, stepped into the shower, and scrubbed until my skin was raw. I cried. But not because I felt regret. I cried because I knew I wouldn't feel it next time. And that scared me more than death. Chapter 6. Silence is a loaded gun. First-person narration. I didn't sleep the night after Candy died. Not because I felt guilt. Because I didn't. That scared me. Not a single tear for her after the syringe. Not a single moment of hesitation as her body hit the floor. I didn't even flinch. I washed my hands. Washed my hair. Cleaned under my nails. Then laid in bed and stared at the ceiling like it was trying to confess something to me. Maybe this was what Maddox wanted all along. Not a soldier. Not an informant. A weapon. And I was starting to feel like one. 24 hours after the kill, I got the text. New assignment. Come armed. No lipstick. The no lipstick part made me smirk. Dahlia always had a way of twisting humor into cruelty. She once told me mascara was a liability, and that heels could kill faster than a knife. Beauty is distraction, she'd said. You don't get to be beautiful and dangerous. Choose one. That night I chose dangerous. Maddox's headquarters was colder than usual. Not just in temperature. In mood. The air carried something sharper than tension. Something silent but violent. Like the pause before a detonation. The masked man didn't greet me at the door this time. Instead, a new face, a woman with pale skin, angular features, and the kind of walk that suggested she'd seen people die and didn't flinch anymore. "Follow me," she said. "No names. No welcome. No warmth." I followed. The war room was dimly lit, screens glowing along the far wall, all showing different feeds: security footage, street cams, satellite overlays. At the center was Maddox, seated in silence, fingers steepled under his chin. To his left was Dahlia. To his right, a body bag. A fucking body bag. I froze for half a second, then stepped forward, shoulders squared. "Problem?" I asked. "Opportunity," Maddox replied. He stood and unzipped the bag. Inside, a woman. Naked. Pale. Bruised. Lipstick smudged across her cheek. A fresh bullet wound in her temple. She couldn't have been older than 23. Pretty. Young. Dead. I swallowed the burn rising in my throat. "She was a political escort," Dahlia said, flipping a file open on the table. "Worked high-end circuits. Real hush-hush stuff. Governors, judges, campaign managers. Anyone with a seat at the table and something to hide." Maddox passed me the file. Inside were photos of her alive, smiling. Then photos of her in bed with a man whose face was unmistakable. Senator Thomas V. McConnell. Anti-sex work. Pro-family values. Bible-thumping fraud. I tilted my head. "Is this blackmail?" Dahlia snorted. "This is insurance." Maddox pointed to a sealed envelope in the corner of the room. "She was supposed to deliver that to a contact in D.C., he said. "Never made it. She ended up in a dumpster behind the St. James Hotel. Bullet in the skull, no witnesses, camera footage wiped. The package never left her hands." "What's in the envelope?" "Testimony," Dahlia said. "Names. Locations. Bank transfers. Enough to burn 3 major players and cripple a political machine." Maddox stepped closer. "And now the vultures think it's lost. They're relaxed. Celebrating." He leaned into my space, voice low. "I want you to deliver the envelope." I raised an eyebrow. "That's it? Just a mail run?" He smiled, and it chilled my bones. "Nothing is ever just anything in this world, Raye. You should know that by now." The drop was scheduled for 2 a.m. at a private event in a luxury hotel masquerading as a charity fundraiser. Politicians. Donors. Oil tycoons with daughters half their age. Every attendee would be wearing a mask, both literal and figurative. And I would be one of them. The dress Dahlia gave me was sleek, black, simple. No slits. No lace. Just clean lines and a built-in holster for a compact pistol against my thigh. The mask was metallic, silver with sharp edges that mirrored the ballroom chandeliers. I looked in the mirror before I left and barely recognized myself. Not because of the disguise. Because of the woman underneath it. The hotel was pure decadence, gilded elevators, velvet ropes, champagne fountains taller than most guests. I walked in with the confidence of a woman who owned every man in the room. Because in a way, I did. The envelope was tucked into a slim clutch at my side, sealed tight, handcuffed to my wrist like a briefcase full of diamonds. My mission was simple: make contact with a man named Alaric. He'd approach me at the bar, ask if I preferred gin or grief. I was to respond, "Depends who's paying." Smooth. Clean. A spy movie cliché. But effective. I found the bar. Ordered a whiskey. Waited. And then he arrived. Alaric was tall, black tux, blue eyes, and a half-smile like he knew he was being hunted but didn't care. He slid next to me. "Gin or grief?" he asked. "Depends who's paying," I said, not looking at him. He smiled, sipped his drink, and tilted his head. "You're younger than I expected." "You're more disposable than I expected," I replied. We held the silence for a beat. Then he laughed. "Follow me." We moved through the crowd like shadows. Into a service elevator. Down to a maintenance corridor that smelled like bleach and secrets. He led me to a storage room. Inside, a table. 2 chairs. "Set it down," he said. I placed the envelope on the table. Then stepped back. He reached for it. And that's when all hell broke loose. The lights cut out. A scream echoed from somewhere above. Then gunfire. Rapid. Brutal. Close. Alaric pulled a pistol from his coat, motioned me back. "Stay behind me." "Fuck that," I hissed, drawing mine from the thigh holster. He opened the door slowly. 2 bodies in the hallway. Security. Throats slit. Blood slicked the tile floor like paint. "This wasn't random," I said. "They knew." "Somebody burned us," he whispered. We moved fast, silent. I clutched the envelope to my chest like it was a newborn. We made it to the loading dock, ducked behind a van. Alaric hit a button on his watch, and a black SUV screeched to a stop at the far end. "Go," he barked. But I paused. Because across the parking lot, in the shadows, someone stood watching. A woman. Blonde. Thin. Red lips. I recognized her in an instant. Lola. From Eclipse. She saw me. Smiled. Then turned and vanished into the night. Back at headquarters, I delivered the envelope. No words. Just the exchange. Maddox didn't ask what happened. He already knew. Dahlia nodded. "We've got a mole." I said nothing. My heart thundered. My fingers twitched. My mind spun. 2 leaks? Or something worse? Maddox met my gaze. "I need you to find her," he said. I didn't have to ask who. I nodded once, then walked out, whispering under my breath. Silence is a loaded gun, and I'm about to pull the trigger. Chapter 7, Velvet Noose. First-person narration. There's a moment, right before you pull the trigger, where the world goes quiet. Your breath pauses. Your fingers go still. Time folds in on itself like an origami heart. And in that pause, there's one question you have to answer before the bullet flies. Is this vengeance, or is it survival? I'd spent most of my life not knowing the difference. But tonight, I did. Because tonight, I wasn't just going to kill Lola. I was going to bury the last piece of who I used to be. After the shootout at the hotel, Maddox went underground. No more direct contact. No more briefings. No more missions. Just a single encrypted message. She was never just a leak. Find her. End it. I knew what that meant. Lola wasn't just selling names. She was orchestrating the whole fucking thing. I didn't go back to Eclipse. That world was gone. Dead. The club, the dressing rooms, the glitter on my skin, all of it dissolved like sugar in blood. I wasn't Velvet anymore. That bitch was hanging from the rafters in some metaphorical backroom, eyes open, lips still painted, but long since lifeless. Now I was Raye, and Raye had work to do. I started digging, tracing Lola's steps, pulling favors, calling ghosts. I broke into her old apartment, found evidence she'd cleared out 2 days before the hotel ambush. Half-packed bags, a dead phone, fake IDs. And under the mattress, a photo. Me. At 15. The same one I burned. Except this copy had a name written on the back. Not mine. My mother's. I stared at it for 5 full minutes. Heart thudding. Mind blank. Then it hit me. Lola knew more than just my name. She knew my past. I didn't sleep for 72 hours. I drove across the city on pure instinct and adrenaline, chasing every lead, every burner phone number, every whisper. I met informants in alleys. Paid bribes. Threatened exes. Broke a man's wrist in a motel room when he refused to talk. Finally, one of them cracked. Lola was hiding out in a mansion on the edge of the city, disguised as a housemaid for a Russian oligarch with a coke problem and a temper. She'd traded her heels for flats and was pretending to be invisible, just another pretty face tucked into the shadows of wealth. She was 2 steps ahead of everyone. Except me. I got inside through the service entrance. Wore the same uniform as the rest of the help, black skirt, white blouse, apron, hair up. Nobody noticed me. Nobody looked twice. Just like old times. I moved through the halls until I found her in the upstairs guest room. Alone. Packing. She didn't see me at first. She was folding dresses. Fast. Panicked. When she turned and saw me standing in the doorway, holding the silenced Glock at my side, her whole body froze. Then she smiled. Like a cobra. "Well, well," she said. "Look who grew fangs." "I'm not here to talk," I replied. "But you always talk before you kill, Raye. That's your thing, right? Whisper something poetic, then pull the trigger like you're writing a love letter in blood." I stepped closer. "Why Lola?" She raised an eyebrow. "Because survival's a motherfucking currency, babe." "Because Maddox? He's not the top of the food chain. He's just a middleman in a suit. And I wanted out. So I made my own deal." "With who?" She shrugged. "You'll be dead before you find out." I aimed the gun at her head. And for a moment, I saw the girl she used to be. The girl I used to trust. The girl who helped me tie my heels backstage, who shared gum and secrets and whispered jokes during slow nights. Gone. Dead long before Candy. And yet she didn't beg. She stepped forward. "Do it," she said. "Be the fucking monster." I hesitated. And in that hesitation, she lunged. We crashed into the wall. My gun went flying. She grabbed a knife from the suitcase and slashed. I ducked. Punched. She caught my jaw with an elbow. I slammed her into the dresser. The mirror shattered. Glass everywhere. Blood ran down my arm. We fought like women who had nothing left to lose. No rules. No choreography. Just rage. She got on top of me, pressed the shard to my throat. I should have killed you in your sleep, she hissed. I grabbed the lamp from the nightstand and cracked it across her temple. She dropped. I crawled to the gun, got it in my hand, turned, and fired. One shot, right between the eyes. Silence. Real silence. The kind that only comes after death. I sat on the floor next to her body, chest heaving, face bloody, heart steady. Back at headquarters, Maddox didn't say anything when I returned. He just looked at me, like I was no longer a weapon, but a warning. Dahlia lit a cigarette and handed me a drink. You good? I stared at the whiskey, then downed it in one swallow. No, I said. But I'm better. Maddox finally spoke. She said you'd hesitate. Said you were still soft. She was wrong. She said you'd keep digging. I looked up. She was right about that. He narrowed his eyes. What are you saying? I want the truth, I said. About my mother. About that photo. About you. Maddox was silent. Then he smiled. The slow, dangerous kind. Then you're not finished, Raye. You're just getting started. Later that night I went home. Stood in the mirror again. Looked at my face. The bruises. The scars. The shadows. I touched my cheek. Then my lips. Then the place where Lola almost carved me open. I reached for a necklace I hadn't worn in years. Just a thin silver chain with a pendant shaped like a tear. Slipped it on. Then whispered. This isn't the end. Because it wasn't. Not for me. Not for the ghosts I still had to confront. Not for the secrets that still hadn't surfaced. But it was the end of something. The end of weakness. The end of innocence. The end of velvet. I walked into the night. Gun holstered. Eyes sharp. Soul clean in the most fucked up way possible. Because now, I wasn't just a stripper with a past. I was a storm in stilettos. A liar with a conscience. A killer with unfinished business. And somewhere out there, the truth was still bleeding. Waiting for me to rip it open. And I will. One bullet at a time.